Hello everyone, and welcome to this month's Synth tutorial with computer music. This month we're going to go on a journey between two different patches. We're going to start by creating a very vintage brass style pad, and we're going to mutate that into a Euro sounding pad. So the first thing we need to do is load up an instance of our favoured DAW, any DAW will do, and then load up an instance of the UHI Zebra CM plugin. So as we often have to do in these situations when we're going to build a patch, we need to start from an initialized point. So we're going to go to the center display, click and select UH Initialize, which will give us a sound like this. As we want to create a vintage sound to start with, we're going to visit both oscillators in turn, and just below where it says oscillator 1, we're going to switch that from dual to single. We're also going to do the same thing for oscillator 2. A little later, we'll be revisiting these boxes to go Euro. As we want to create a sound which is quite brassy and bright, we're going to change the tuning of oscillator 2 and put it one octave higher. If we change the tuning, you can hear it going up a little bit there. We're now one octave higher, and you'll also notice that when you look at the readout in the center here, it reads 12. That relates to the number of semitones, 12 semitones being an octave. Part of the sound of this initialized patch is something we need to eliminate, and this is to do with the filter. At the moment, envelope 2 is being sent in the direction of the filter, and we need to get rid of this. So by moving over to the filter section on the far right hand side, let's go to the envelope 2 pot and let's reduce that all the way down to 0, which puts it in around about a 12 o'clock position. We should now hear something that sounds like this. Now, as you can hear, just about possibly, it's very, very dull now. So we're going to take hold of the cutoff control, also within the filter section, and take that all the way up to its maximum of 150. And it's now sounding very bright indeed. We're still getting a little bit of interplay from the envelope section here, and it's in fact envelope 1, the upper of the two envelopes on the bottom left hand side here, that we want to alter. We want to take this sustain up considerably, so we're going to take it up to, it reads roughly 85 on the center display there. It puts it in around about the 3 o'clock position, but it now means that we get a much more sustained sound like this. Now we've altered that sustain setting, we're in a position to be able to use that as quite a brassy patch sound for a track. But something you might have noticed if you look at the metering is we are absolutely peaking out there. So what we might need to do is go down to the left hand side here where we've got a master control, and what this will allow us to do is to take the level of the instrument down a little bit so it's not peaking. Of course, the more notes you play, the louder the instrument will be, the more the chance of it peaking. It's also worth mentioning that it's a good idea to possibly use some compression. I've got a compressor in line here which I can just bring into view here, which is just going to keep things under control. Now for the moment I'm just going to switch the compressor off, as we're now going to go Euro. So in order to do this, we go back to our oscillators, and the drop down menu from each oscillator section we're going to take to 11. Now I won't be tempted to make any references to Spinal Tap at this point by saying we can have an extra push over the cliff, but that's exactly what we're effectively going to have, and you'll now hear a very different sound like this. So we're now hearing 22 sawtooth waves that are piled on top of each other. Now you'll hear from this sound that it's sounding quite phased. So in order to eradicate the phasing elements that we've got going on here, we're going to go to each oscillator in turn and play around with the tuning, or the detuning to be more exact. So within oscillator 2 you can see we have a control here marked detune. If we play a note and then move that pot, you can hear that the movement of the saws gets even livelier as they spread apart in terms of their tuning. We're going to do the same with oscillator 1 now, but in actual fact we're making the tuning of oscillator 1 lower than the tuning of oscillator 2. Now you can do this to taste, but I've set oscillator 1, being the lower pitched oscillator, to around about -20, and I've set oscillator 2, being the higher oscillator pitch, to around about 15. But actually you can put them wherever you want, it's just how wide you want that to become. Another little nice detail which you might like to try relates to the upper pot on the right hand side here, which is a panning control. By altering this you'll be able to move the oscillator within the stereo image. And if you do that with the opposite oscillator, you can create quite a nice stereo effect, which will work just as well on the vintage sound as it will on the Euro sound, although as we have so many sawtooths in play on the Euro sound, it's highly effective in this setting. Now once again, we've got a lot of noise going on here, and because there are so many sawtooths in play, it's a very vibrant sound which is going to be quite prone to peaking if we play too many notes. So I'm going to bring the compressor back into play here. So we've now got a fantastic sound that allows us to play things like this. You know, for those kind of classic sort of dancey sounds from the 90s. Now one last part of the equation is we could put in some other effects as well if we want to. I've got a reverb and a delay here, which I've tried putting in line. So here's my delay line, which is just adding a little bit of back-end delay there. I've got it mixed quite low. And I've got a Fab Filter reverb in play here as well, which is just adding a little bit of room bass color around about 1 second. You can make that more exaggerated if you want to, but it will ring around quite a bit, especially if you open up the mix settings. So thank you again for watching this tutorial. We'll see you next month.